Hello.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Sorry.
Oh my God. Okay, well, welcome back to the F1 Predictions Challenge, which I set at the beginning of the year, and I challenged myself and Sean and Jonty, who is not here today because he's not very well, and Dan from F1 Reviews, and I've got Sean and Dan back here with me. Hey, you guys.
Hi, Stuart. How are you?
I'm all right, thanks.
I am on full fat coke tonight, though, so I need to just give you a warning there. It's not alcohol, but it's pretty close.
And hey, Dan, welcome back. Oh.
Hey, man. I'm ready to argue. I'm not going to lie. I'm ready to fight this, and I've got water, I'm afraid. A little bit more boring than you, Sean. I'm sorry.
And I've got Pepsi Max, so I'm in the middle. Now, Dan, you saying before we started recording that you hadn't actually looked at these since we made them, so you sort of have no idea what's coming.
No, there's a couple I can remember, but I just thought it'd be a little bit more fun and a little bit more embarrassing as well, just to see how stupid I was at the beginning of the year.
And you, Sean, have you any idea what's coming?
I have no idea, but like Dan, I think that makes it more interesting. Definitely.
Cool. And do it now. Let's go into the first question, which you may remember was guessing how many safety cars there'd be over the whole year, in which you get more points the closer you get. I'm just going to run through what you already predicted, in which I went quite low with 13, Jonty went for 20, Dan, you went for 21, and Sean, you went for 19. How many do you think there have been already?
It can't be more than 4?
Nah, more than that, because there were 3 in Germany alone, right?
Oh yeah, I forgot about Germany.
Sorry,
about
mate.
Germany.
You can't forget about Germany. All right, well,
7.
I can tell you, after 12 races, there have been 9. There were 5 in Germany.
Wow.
Including the one that that sort of started the race. I don't know whether you want to fight about that one, but it may not work in your favour if you do, because I'll do the math myself. If we extrapolate that, assuming that safety cars come at very even rates, we're looking at 15.8 over the whole year. So maybe 15, maybe 16, but I don't know if you expect any other races like Germany to come up.
I'm hoping for more races like Germany. I will say right now, though, sort of, after what happened with the bingo, I want to kind of clarify this now. If we get to the end of this season and that one that starts the race takes it to 20, then I am fighting that to keep it at 19.
It's definitely been not as many as we've thought. I don't know if you've been feeling some watching. They've been leaning on the virtual safety car a little bit more.
Yeah, it does. It feels that way, but also, and I'm not trying to put downer on the sport, but it wasn't the most thrilling first few races, was it? So it was very much a couple of cars disappeared up front, and everybody else kind of got on with it behind. Whereas then you got Germany, and it just went boom.
Yeah,
it just all went wrong.
And also, I guess the earlier races tend to be the newer, wider, bigger tracks where you don't necessarily have to build a safety car. Where Germany, Hungary, Silverstone. Not that we had any Hungary. You would be a little bit more cautious. But it's quite simple. This, if we round that up to 16, and if things go as they are, none of us would score any points yet. So you've particularly you guys have really got to start hoping for more safety cars. I've got to start hoping for slightly less safety cars. Not looking good for anyone so far. But now we've gone to more, I don't know, contentious is the word. Top tier dominance. Now, this is where we start to perhaps see where our perceptions of the season before we began racing may have gone a bit awry. So I asked you to predict just basically what percentage of the points the top 3 teams would scoop up out of all the available remaining points. Jonty went for a conservative 65, whereas the rest of us went a bit higher. Dan, you went 79. Sean, you went 74. And I went 72. How do you, if you had to guess, how many points do you think Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull, as a percentage, have swallowed?
I reckon low 70s. The issue's Gasly. That's what's really messed this whole statistic up. I reckon 71%. I reckon you're pretty close, Stuart.
What about you, Sean?
Oh, I'm not going to start on Gasly. That's an argument for another day. I think like low 70s seems quite high, but then Mercedes have just crushed it, haven't they? And Max has been brilliant, and Ferrari have been, I was quite surprised. I was looking at some stats for a video that I did the other day, just how many points and podiums they were picking up. So it could be low 70s. It just seems a bit high in my head.
So I think going into this, remember that we had sort of optimistic eyes going into the season. We thought everything would be a little bit closer and things like that, especially when we come to look at the podiums prediction. They've actually taken 970 out of the 1,224 points, which is 79.25%. So Dan, you're almost bang on right now.
Wow.
No.
It's
I'm
huge.
happy with that.
Which would give you 2 points because, rounding up to the nearest number, you've actually got that bang on. Now, these things may change. Some of the smaller teams are sort of going better, but actually the podium dominance of the top three has been quite catastrophic.
Yeah, I mean, it's a double-edged sword because I love the fact I've got points on the board. That's brilliant, but it's not ideal. I mean, that's almost 80%. That's not healthy. I don't want to trash talk Formula One too much, but I mean, I would have liked to have seen that a little bit lower, to be honest. But points is brilliant, so I got a smile on my face. I can't lie.
Imagine what would have happened if Ricciardo had still been at Red Bull. How high that would have been, potentially.
Yeah, because
Gasly must be dragging that down quite a bit.
Still gonna this whole stream's gonna turn into like how Gasly is ruining all your predictions, which he will continue to do later. Yeah, I think you're right though, and I think we've been surprised by sort of the midfield maybe falling back a little bit. I mean, particularly Jonty. I think if we look at his prediction, I'm going to speak for him now, as I'm sure he'd love me to. We did expect a little bit more competition. We thought there'd be a little bit of a shift in the power dynamic, whereas actually it seems to have got a little bit stronger.
The field's definitely getting closer. I mean, not just because of the racing's been much better, but the last few races they've definitely appeared closer, and even Williams are starting to threaten that bottom end of the midfield, if I'm being generous. So it'd be interesting to see what that percentage is for the final 12 races, if that makes sense, versus the first 11 or 12.
Yeah, I'm not going to hold you to it, but what did you imagine it would be by the end after the last 9 races?
It'll be much lower than that. It depends what Albon does. He might turn up and win every race. You never know. I reckon it'd be lower. Not just because there are fewer races, but more races, whatever. But yeah, I think it'll be lower than 79.25. I think a lot of that is, I don't know, it feels like the field are getting closer together.
Perhaps. What about you, Dan? Do you think the Albon effect will make things worse, or the rest of the field will step it up?
I think it'll make things worse. I do. I mean, we've had Germany as well, and the amount of points that the midfield drivers got then was pretty insane. So yeah, I think maybe you'll go into the 80s. I hope not. That'd be a shame.
All right. Well, let's move on. Hopefully, there's something more optimistic to look at coming up next. Podium positions. Now, you might remember I asked you to name every single driver you think will get on the podium, and you get a point for everyone you got right, but you'd lose a point for everyone you got wrong.
Oh dear.
Let's have a little look at what people predicted. Now, Dan, so everyone predicted basically the main 6, which includes Gasly. But Dan, you only had one more, which was Ricciardo. Everybody picked a Renault driver. Everyone picked a Ricciardo except for Jonty, who went with Hülkenberg. Everybody but Dan went for both Racing Point drivers. Sean, you also went for Raikkonen. Jonty went for Raikkonen. I added Magnussen, and Jonty went for Magnussen and Kubica. I mean, Jonty's about to be annihilated. There have been just 6 people on the podium, not including Gasly, but yes, including Kvyat, which means, Dan, you've come out of this the best.
Oh my god, this is hilarious.
So you got 5 minus. You've actually got 3. I can't add up. You've got 5 minus 2, which is 3. Sean and I have got 0 because we've got 5 that cancelled out the top 5, and Jonty's got minus 2. So Jonty's total score is currently minus 2. I think this is in line with the last question, that we sort of had a little bit of a more optimistic feel about how well the midfield will be able to step it up.
Pre-season looked so close, didn't it? And we all kind of got excited about Kubica, though. What was Jonty on with? Williams. Nothing against Kubica, but a Williams on the podium. Wow.
Clearly, Dan, you were closest to the money on this. I mean, it's probably fair to say we all expected Renault to be a little bit better than they have been this season. They've been the real shocker. But I don't know if you can cast your mind back and remember why you maybe weren't as optimistic as the rest of us.
Obviously, I'm boring. I mean, even the last one, I went to this season a bit of a Debbie Downer. Apparently, I did not expect good things, but I mean, points. I'm happy with that once again. I'm still surprised at Gasly. I mean, how he's not been able to do it, I don't know. There's still chance. You know, he almost got a podium last year in Bahrain for Toro Rosso, so might cling on to that. And maybe if we get another Germany, Ricciardo might sneak one. But I think I'm pretty safe looking at what the rest of you have gone with.
Yeah, I was just going to say, actually, on Gasly, it might be that, you know, losing his seat at Red Bull and getting dropped to Toro Rosso might give him the boost that he needs. But I was going to say, don't write off Kimi, because he's been slowly getting on with it this season, and he might spring a surprise. A few people, when sort of looking at my comment sections, seem to think that he could still spring a surprise this year. So I'm optimistic for Kimi, not so much for Racing Point, though, if I'm being honest.
But I think we're more likely to see McLaren's up there, which nobody predicted. Because
Norwich, either of them on the podium would be brilliant, wouldn't it?
Do you expect Albon to get on the podium?
Yeah, I'd be very surprised. Although I'm still shocked Gasly hasn't got there. So it very easily could be the same kind of story. But we've got circuits coming up like Singapore, Mexico in particular, that Red Bull should go well at. And especially Mexico, I expect Red Bull to be probably the clear best team on the grid. And I think Albon's going to have to have a pretty dodgy race or reliability issues to miss out at that race. So, yeah, I think Albon will sneak one, to be honest.
When I first heard the news, I was very pessimistic. I thought this is too soon, it's daft. But when you actually sit down and look at all his races and the stats and things like that, he's definitely been better than his points tally shows. That podium, you can't take anything away from Kvyat, but that podium in Germany definitely exaggerates that gap quite a bit. It's very close between them in every other aspect. So if Kvyat's as highly rated as people are making out, then I think Albon's got a great shot at surprising. And I'm quite confident for him. I don't know about winning races, but I'd like to think he can nick a podium. But then, like Dan said, we all thought that about Gasly at the start of the year. So I think more optimistic than I was when I first heard the news, definitely.
I definitely think watching Albon over the next few races will give us a better idea of where Gasly actually is. You know, is Verstappen just like 4 leagues ahead of everyone, and we're a little bit hard on Gasly. We shall see. But let's have a look at the next question. So my sort of stats on this are going to be a little bit contrived, but I did ask you which driver will have the biggest increase in points in percentage from the last 10 races compared to the first 10 races. So they actually end up ignoring Silverstone. Sean, if you remember, got confused about what this question actually meant. Whereas I've gone for Giovinazzi, Jonty's gone for Raikkonen, and Dan, you've gone for Albon, which I think might work in your favour. Just to give you a little bit of a, I think the Albon factor is going to throw this completely. But what I did was I took the first 6 races against the second 6 races. Do you have any idea who the top 3 people are in terms of who improved from those first 6 to the second 6?
Well, obviously Hamilton has got to be top of that list.
Sainz has got to be up there. Sainz had a couple of DNFs early on, and China, so I reckon he's near the top.
Fiat?
Well, let's have a look at the top 3. Now, what I've done, I've kind of ignored Kubica and Gio because they scored 0 and then 1, and that's a confusing bit of maths. But okay, so third place Sainz improved by 122% in his second half of the first half of the season. Grosjean, your man Grosjean, 200% better.
Nice.
So if he continues that climb, he'll be definitely fighting for podiums at the end. And your biggest improver is actually Lance Stroll. 250% point increase.
Oh, Lance Stroll. Good lad.
Now, so far, none of us have predicted any of these people, but unless there's a lot more changing around in the grid, I think Albon's move to Red Bull may put this in the bag.
I'd agree with that.
You see, I'm going to have to hold the phone there because Giovinazzi's on 1 point, right? So if he gets 1 more point, that's 100%. So that's going to work in your favour quite nicely.
That is a good point. Yeah, he starting. He doesn't have to get that many points to really, really multiply his thing. And Alfa Romeo are looking strong Whereas,
Can I ask really
Yeah.
bravely here?
Hmm.
Do we basically need extra races and a whole new point structure for Lewis Hamilton to even come close to this?
I haven't done the maths. I mean, Lewis cannot score, I don't think, much more than 100%. In fact, he's got 250 points. There's not 250 points left available. So I think
Double points for the
think
final
he's.
3 races.
Well, we can have a word with Liberty. I think
Yeah.
think it's fair to say Hamilton's out of the running. In fact, I think I did this. Hamilton's currently 17th in these rankings. Gio I kind of ignored, but he'll come back into play later. Raikkonen 7th and Albon 9th. Again, this sort of extrapolation is a little bit dodgy because I think first 6 to second 6 is not going to be the same as first 10 to last 10. Nonetheless, no points for anyone so far. But you do make a very good point, Dan, about Gio being well positioned to take this. Jonty, I think, has a problem with Raikkonen doing too well in the first half of the season and not moving up to Ferrari in the way that Albon has. So I think, Dan, it's between you and me.
I'd say so. Sorry, Sean. I don't think you're
Sorry,
in this
it's my
one.
own stupidity, Dan. It's fine if I learn to read things properly.
But Dan, yeah, you're still looking good so far. Let's have a look at the next set of predictions that we probably mucked up. Or maybe not. Driver of the day. Which driver will get the most official driver of the day's victories? In which I went for Leclerc. And I think, Jonty and Sean went for Verstappen. And Dan went for Raikkonen. Do you have any feel for how this is going?
Got to be Verstappen, surely.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
Well, I can tell you. In third place, Vettel, Albon, Norris and Bottas all have 1. Leclerc has 3. And Verstappen has 5.
100.
Yeah. Again, I think this is one of the most contentious things in Formula 1 because there's a lot of times when people just throw their hands up when they see the... Although, didn't Kubica very nearly get one due to a glitch?
Yeah, I can't remember which race that was, but you're right.
As a fellow didn't pick Verstappen person, do you think either of us have a chance here?
I think we've slipped up here. I think this was very obvious looking back at it now, but we tried to be different. There's still time. It's unlikely.
As I recall, I remember going into this Leclerc being pretty popular and being able to show his stuff in a Ferrari. And I believe you, Dan, were going with that Kimi's very popular and he'll be able to have fun and be more visible in an Alpha or a Sauber as it was then.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. So we weren't that stupid. I appreciate you trying to defend us there.
Whereas, Sean, you've sort of followed suit with what happened the last few years.
You just can't underestimate the Orange Army, can you? It's just... Plus the way he's been driving.
Yeah, you can't ignore that.
Red Bull will be even better in this second half or the last 9 races. I keep calling it second half of the season. It's not technically, is it? But it kind of is. I think they're going to be mega. I think he's got it in the bag.
There's a small chance that he will be the person contending for the championship, or at least going for second place with the journey him and Red Bull are on.
Yeah, definitely. I keep calling him a title outsider. I know that things are going to have to go disastrously wrong for Mercedes and Hamilton, but I don't see Bottas challenging Hamilton. I think Verstappen is the only one that can, based on how they perform, but definitely an outsider. He's going to need some luck, though.
Do you see him wangling way up to at least second, Dan? Do you think that's a possibility in the standings?
I think so, especially the form Bottas is on at the moment. He's got a little bit unlucky at certain Grand Prix, especially Silverstone, but Max is he's the man at the moment. And as I said a little bit earlier on, there's tracks in this second half of the season which are really going to suit Ferrari and really going to suit Red Bull. Don't want to put too much hope in people's hearts because Mercedes are still going to be quick and they're going to win races. But I think Max has definitely proved in the first half of the season that he's going to be up there. And I think, second place I reckon he's got a good shot.
Right, just based on that, Jonty and Sean, you get another couple of points. I'll reveal how many the total is at the end. The next question was, there's no clear answer here, but which drivers we thought would leave Formula 1 in 2019? Jonty's gone Bottas, Perez, Hulkenberg. Dan, you went for Kvyat and Kubica. Sean, you went for Bottas, Grosjean, Raikkonen, and I went for Bottas, Kvyat, Grosjean. And it's funny how you sort of look at these now, and it kind of seems really bizarre that some of the names we picked. Perhaps we'll start with you, Sean, where you thought your mind was at the beginning of this and how right you think you are now.
Yeah, I mean, Bottas, he'd had a rough end to 2018, so I kind of picked him thinking he's going to at least be dropped from Mercedes with Ocon coming in, and then maybe might not find a seat or want to go. You know, if you're racing for Mercedes, do you want to jump in a Williams, for example? So you might want to go race somewhere else. Grosjean, well, yeah. Raikkonen, I just... Sorry, Dan. With Kimi, I know he's got a contract, but that contract, he said himself the other week, isn't worth the paper it's written on. If he wants to go, he will. And he's going to be, 41?
Of those three, which do you think will actually disappear?
Grosjean, definitely. 50-50 Bottas, and Raikkonen, who knows?
Yeah. I think that's fair enough assessment. But Dan, you've once again sort of gone on the conservative side. You're like the anti-Jonty, really. I think it's probably fair to say Kvyat has been a surprise this year.
I didn't expect him to get a podium, to be honest with you. I mean, I really thought he'd have a season like his previous last season in Formula One. I thought he'd be a little bit downtrodden or trodden, but no, he's really come back. And I know Formula One Today put up a video, top 10 overtakes of the season, and whether they're the top 10 correct, that doesn't matter. But he's really made some awesome moves in a car which hasn't been at the front of the midfield, and he's made it work. Put it this way, though, I think Robert Kubica's probably a good shout. Looking at it now, he's not had the return he wanted. So, again, double-edged sword, because it's great that I'm hopefully going to get some points on the board. But at the same time, I've really loved seeing him come back to Formula One. It's just such a shame it's not been the dream return. Yeah. But then you look at Williams and they don't have the most funds. They're not going to be able to go out and have their own pick of drivers. So who's going to go into that seat? Are they just going to be happy to keep Kubica? So
I think I tend to agree with what you both said on Bottas and Kvyat. I think a lot of us thought going into the season that Kvyat was just keeping a seat warm while Red Bull sorted their young driver stream out. And again, I think, with Grosjean, even the greats have to retire at some point. We've seen we've seen so many legends leave the sport. They can't be around forever. Just having a little look at Jonty's predictions up there, because he's, apart from Bottas, he's got Perez and Hulkenberg, which sort of a little off kilter with the rest of us.
See, Perez, I don't think he will. The talk is that he's going to renew that deal with Racing Point. He brings money as well. He's a bloody good driver. There's no denying that. Hulkenberg, though, he doesn't seem totally happy at Renault. There's talk about him going to Haas. There's a possibility he won't have a seat for next year. It seemed crazy at the start of the season when he said it, and some might think it still seems crazy now, but it's not completely beyond the realms of possibility.
Which race will have the most retirements? Dan, you got Monaco. Sean and me went for Baku, and Jonty went for Belgium. I'm sure you can all guess which the most retiree races was.
Yeah, France. Chaos.
All right. Well, the third place, Australia, Bahrain and Britain, they all had 3 retirements. Baku had 4 retirements. But Germany snuck in there under the radar with the wet weather and got 6 retirements, which means all 3 of us are already wrong. And it's all down to whether Belgium bites back and gets Jonty some points.
Well, that went well, didn't it?
At least Jonty needs them. So if, with being charitable to anyone, I think I'm okay with it going to Jonty.
I mean, Belgium's not above that kind of nonsense.
You've got to remember as well, they're all rusty after the summer break. So going into turn 1, if there's a little bit of rain maybe, bit damp through turn 1, you never know. Rusty, few weeks off, still on the beach.
Dan, are you surprised that we were 12 races in and the highest amount of retirements has just been 6?
But no, I'm not too surprised, to be honest. And Germany feels to me like there were more than 6, to be honest with you. So, you know what? Like you both have just said, if we get another Germany, I'm very happy with that.
Again, no points for anyone yet. And it's all coming down to Belgium, whether or not there's any points that come here. So next race of the season, keep your eye on that. Which driver will gain the most positions from lights to flag in total if they go backwards? I can tell you what you think. Me and Sean are in lockstep again with Verstappen. Jonty's gone for Kubica. And Dan's gone for Stroll.
I think Dan's in on this one.
Yeah, you got a feel for this? So I've got the top 3 here. Any guesses as to who's in it?
Stroll was top of the most positions gained on the first lap on average at 1.5 something. So I guess he'd be up there. Keeps qualifying out of position as well, does old Lancey boy. So that's going to help.
All right, I'll tell you the top 3. Russell is third. He's gained 32 places. Kubica is second. He's gained 33 places. All from the benefit of a strategic qualifying position in order to win this particular challenge. Stroll 57 positions. He's well in the lead. I was quite surprised to see the Williams doing so well. I don't know why. I just felt like they were at the back and stayed at the back, but actually because they've been so consistent.
They've both finished every race, haven't they? So far.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. Which is, I get, it's why they managed to accumulate so many. Now, Sean, you and I picked Verstappen. I know why I picked Verstappen.
I think I was expecting more Honda problems than they got, and he was going to be a bit like last year with the Renault. They were going to be well out of position. The US Grand Prix, for example, where he started right down the back and ended up 8th by about lap 4 or something. That's what I was expecting. So having to make his way back, and that's not really worked, which is a good thing because he's up the front fighting Hamilton and co. So for this, it's bad. For F1 and for us as fans, it's brilliant.
Dan, I know your pick is currently winning. Are you surprised by how much he's winning?
I think so. I think my thinking back at the beginning of the year was Stroll's a bit, pants at qualifying, to be honest with you. And I think he's proved me right so far this season. But I expected, a little bit like, I think you both went for the Racing Point cars to get podiums. I expected the car to be pretty quick, especially in race trim. So that was my thinking. But that gap, I am surprised at that. Stroll is, you know what? That's I know it's just one statistic there, but that's pretty naughty from him.
Yeah, I think that's going to be very hard to beat. But we still have got 9 races left, and if the Williams keep finishing, then who knows where they're going to end up. Question again, 2 points go to Dan for that one. And this is another question I haven't given points yet because there may be some debate over it. I asked you which teams will launch with significantly different liveries. We may not have to debate too hard because I think we've picked some similar things. So we've all picked Haas, and I think we can all agree that is definitely a different livery. Now, Jonty and I have picked McLaren. Jonty's not here to defend himself. I'm barely here to defend this McLaren livery, which is different.
No.
It's got little diamonds on it. Yeah, it's got blue. Well, yeah, okay, you're right. Fine, not McLaren. Sorry, Jonty. I'm sure Jonty will be shouting at the screen for not defending the McLaren harder, and he can definitely come back later if he wants to fight McLaren's corner. We've all picked Williams. I think we all agree that is different. We all knew Martini were leaving. Dan, based on how Sean reacted during the bingo stream, we may have to fight him hard on the Racing Point, which I think is in a similar position to the McLaren in that it has some more blue on it that weren't there before. But Sean's the only one who hasn't picked it.
See, that's a difficult one because it's a different shade of pink, that's for sure. A bit of blue.
It sure is. It's barely recognisable in my opinion.
Yeah. I might have to betray us though. I'm sorry. It's not enough. In my head, I was thinking, they're going to ditch the pink, and they've still gone with pink. And personally, when I read this question, I think you're changing your complete identity, and so I think, that feels like stabbing yourself. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
that I shouldn't be doing that, and that's more points left out for Jonty. But not enough for me.
To complement what you said, I guess if you took a complete outsider from Formula One and you put the two 2018 and 2019 cars next to each other and asked them if they were from the same team, they'd probably say yes. Alpha, though, no. I think we could agree.
It's got a red halo. Come on.
I think no. This is Jonty. I haven't marked this up because I knew we were going to debate this, but this is a sort of a minus points for Jonty again. Situation.
Emphasize again.
This one kind of neutralised itself quite quickly. Remember I asked you about Alonso on his little racing trips around the world and I asked you which ones he would win out of the Daytona 24 Hours, the Indy 500, the Le Mans 24 Hours and the WEC title. Jonty went for everything, whereas the rest of us just went for Le Mans and WEC. And he did win the Le Mans and WEC, but he also won the Daytona 24 Hours. So actually, everybody got 2 points because Jonty lost a point for the Indy 500. Were you surprised at what happened with Alonso and McLaren?
Typical McLaren and Alonso, talking up their chances and then they turn up and they don't deliver. Was it last season where they went in with Honda and he blew up after leading for a while?
Yeah.
I thought if they'd learned from that and they were looking good and maybe they could... I didn't think he was going to win it, but I thought he could at least challenge. But to not qualify, that's pretty embarrassing, isn't it? I know they're new to IndyCar, but that is pretty embarrassing.
2 points all round. Basically, it's as if that question didn't exist. Another question that will require, I think, some debate and arguing. Rookie of the Year, again, which I haven't marked this up, and we're going to have to wait till the end of the year to sort of see how this all unfolds. We sort of agreed the contenders are Albon, Giovinazzi, Norris, and Russell. If anyone else turns up, we can throw them in as well, but they haven't yet. Now, Dan, you went for Norris. Sean, you went for Giovinazzi. I went for Russell. And Jonty also went for Giovinazzi. I'm not sure if there is a definitive answer here, but Dan, why don't you talk to me about Norris and how you've seen his season so far?
I think he's done really well. I tell you what, I'm looking at. I completely forgot I went for this, and I'm looking at it now. And at the time, I didn't think he was ready for Formula One, but I thought Russell wasn't going to be able to prove himself in the Williams. And I didn't expect anyone to go for Giovinazzi. So sorry, Jonty. I know you're not here again, but we're throwing you under the bus again. I think Norris is up against a teammate like Carlos Sainz. I think he's done himself proud. So there's a big gap in points, but I also believe he's ahead of Sainz in the quali battle. So I think actually a little bit like one of you, apologies, I can't remember who it was, said about the gap between Kvyat and Albon. I think what happened in Germany has really skewed some of these results. And I think Norris has actually had a pretty strong season, or at least first half of the season.
Giovinazzi, who possibly surprisingly lacking in points, I might say.
Yeah, I can't really argue for him too much. I spent a whole year last year saying how Giovinazzi wasn't as good as people were making out. Then I go and back him for Rookie of the Year, and he proves me right the first time around. But, I mean, to be fair to him, he's not been Van Dorned in qualifying, which is good. I think it's 8.4 or something like that. He's just over half a tenth off Kimi on average, so he's got the pace. But the problem is, as I always say, it's becoming a bit of a cliche. Points are handed out on a Sunday, and he's been battered in the races 11-1. I think it is with his teammate, and he's got 1 point on the board, Gio. So it's not... It's all right being close in qualifying, but it's the points that matter at the end of the day.
There's been definite moments this year I've thought, you know what, Giovinazzi isn't terrible, but no, I think it's not been great, and he needs a strong half or second half to keep his seat next year.
This is an interesting and might be the most contentious thing we'll have to argue over at the end of the season. As I kind of move on to Russell a little bit, who could be the Rookie of the Year, and we might never know. It's so hard to gauge what Russell's doing, and I think Dan alluded to that at the beginning when he was talking about how he came to his decision making. He had that brilliant qualifying in Hungary. I'm already forgetting which races are which now. When he was...
Yeah, it was Hungary. Yeah. Oh, so close.
Yeah, because Williams had just sort of upgraded their package, and we got to see... He's definitely outshone Kubica. It's unlucky he didn't manage to get points in that German Grand Prix, and I think he's doing a great job. But again, the Williams is just so incomparable to every other car that it's really hard to have any feel of what Russell's doing, Sean.
Yeah, and the fact that he said a few months ago now, he said, those that need to know how well I'm performing, almost shows that he's aware that he might be flying under the radar, that people are going to go, oh yeah, well, 19th every race isn't exactly brilliant. It's like, no, but he is in a Williams. He's battering Kubica, a driver that a lot of people thought would come up and destroy him. And Toto Wolff is impressed with him. Claire Williams is impressed with him. They might look at that data and go, wow, this kid's a world champion of the future. Or they might go, yeah, he's all right.
Now, Dan, we haven't mentioned, none of us picked Albon, but he is the one driver that has actually managed to be promoted, and we'll probably see much more of him in the next 9 races. Do you think he could be the one that gets the nod? I know we're the ones that are going to have to nod at the end of the year.
You know what? Sean said it earlier. I think actually, if you look at under the surface, Albon's had a really good start to the year. It's not been, well, I don't think it's been quite on the levels of Norris or Russell just yet, but I think being at the front, he's going to be in the limelight a lot more. And so I think definitely more casual Formula One fans that only focus on the front will maybe think, oh, Albon, actually, who's this new driver? Look into him a little bit more. And I think that kind of hype might help him. But at the same time, being teammate with Max Verstappen, that could really hurt him. I think he'll have a good second half. I struggle to see him really making a big impact at Red Bull to cause any major change at the front of the championship or the constructors. So I don't know. I still think it's between Norris and Russell. Albon, I think for me, has to at least win a race or be on the podium to be able to be in a sniff of this.
Now, I made a call on this, but you guys may disagree. I asked which team will come out of winter testing looking the strongest. Sean, you went for Mercedes. Me and Dan went for Ferrari, and Jonty went for Renault. I think apparently. Now, I have put Ferrari as the answer. I think when we were discussing it at the time, I think we felt Ferrari were looking strong. Sean, you have not picked Ferrari, so if you think I've got the wrong end of the stick there, let me know.
No, I think it's frustrating because we thought we were in for an epic season, didn't we? But
yeah.
No, they came out of that pre-season absolutely as the best team on paper. But I remember saying in a preview that we did that I had a gut feeling Mercedes were going to dominate the season. So despite the fact Ferrari had come out of pre-season as the clear favourites, I was still pretty sure Mercedes were going to absolutely cruise it. But yeah, I can't disagree with that.
Yeah, even after Australia, when Mercedes got that fairly dominant win, I think quite a lot of the Formula One paddock and the Formula One world were thinking, but Ferrari, they're going to be back in Bahrain. And they were. They got a fair bit unlucky in Bahrain. But I vividly remember during that Grand Prix thinking, wow, Ferrari really have it this year. I was very wrong, apparently. Very wrong. But yeah, Ferrari, yeah, definitely this answer.
Whatever they had, they left it in Bahrain.
Package. Okay, so if we pick Ferrari, then Dan and I get a couple of points for that. Again, this is something we can't call yet, but I'll be interested to know if you think we're all very optimistic. Which race will the driver's title be won? 3 of us went for Abu Dhabi, and Sean, you've gone for Brazil. Do you think any of us will be right?
I think I'm probably the closest. I think we said this in the bingo update quite a bit, Stuart. It's all down to Verstappen. It's all up to Max. I think we could be looking at a 3rd year in a row in Mexico. And
I mean, I'd be more than happy for Sean to get points here as well, to be honest with you.
Just to cling on.
Yeah, I can only reiterate what Sean just said. It's all down to Max to be able to do something really special in this second half. And even that is very unlikely. So I'm happy that I don't think anyone's going to get points, at least.
If we had this season as dominant as it had been, but all the races had been... So, like, if Mercedes still were where they were in terms of points and Hamilton was still dominating the championship, but every race had been as brilliant as the last 4 have been, would people be as negative about the sport? Is it necessary? I've never, ever looked at it and gone, this team is winning the championship, that's terrible. My argument is always, I don't care who wins the championship by how many points, so long as the races that get us there are really good.
Are we on to the next question? In which we will see our optimism thrive again in certain ways. I did ask which team you thought would come last in the constructor standings and with how many points. I don't know if you remember what you predicted. Dan and Jonty went for Toro Rosso with 12 points.
Oh, no.
Sean and I went for Williams, but Sean expected them to have 15 points and I expected them to have 18 points. So...
You never know.
I think Williams have really shocked quite a number of us, actually, just how badly it's gone for them. Dan, if you cast your mind back, do you remember why you went with Toro Rosso?
No. I was obviously a little bit silly. I think I just wasn't inspired by the lineup at the time, whereas I thought Russell was coming in hungry, ready to prove himself. And I thought Kubica would come back and perform better than he has. So obviously, I thought Williams would get more than 12 points as well. We all obviously did. So obviously, Williams must have done something to prove that it must have been okay. But Toro Rosso, they've definitely done better than I thought, to be honest with you. And has to be as low as they are. They're around the 18-point mark, I believe. I mean, at the bottom of the championship, it really has been pretty dire for some teams. But yeah, we were all quite a way off of Williams, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember how many points Williams got last year, Sean, but I think we were aiming. It didn't feel like an optimistic guess at the time. I don't know if you can remember where you were when you gave Williams 15 times more points than they currently have.
We did these before pre-season,
testing,
and
yeah.
I always felt like Williams would probably be last, but I didn't expect one team to be cut completely adrift of everybody else. I thought it was just be really close between everybody. So I think that's why I've gone with that. But I was optimistic for Russell. Like Dan thought Kubica was going to come back and absolutely smash it as well. And it just, I don't know. If people watching for the first time this, they're going to look at that and go, are they drunk when they made these predictions? But it didn't seem completely ludicrous back in February at all.
If I was to ask you how many points do you think Williams will get next year, what would you say?
I would say 10. So not too far off what you two have gone for, to be honest. I think, especially the improvements they showed in Hungary, I think they're getting there slowly. And as Sean said earlier, law of diminishing returns, surely they can only get better, right?
This is Williams, Dan. They can easily go backwards from here.
So Sean and I will get 2 points for that. We won't get the 3 extra points for getting the point spot on. But so I also asked which engine manufacturer scored the greatest average points, which I realised that I haven't done the average of yet. So what you're going to see is the total points. We can do some maths in a sec. Anyway, Dan, you've gone for Mercedes, and the rest of us have gone for Ferrari. And I need to remember how many teams everybody has. But I can tell you, Renault have 121 points. Honda have 287 points. Ferrari have 346 points. And Mercedes have 470 points. And I'm going to have to do some maths on the fly, which I'll definitely cut out. 156 for Mercedes. Ferrari have also got 1, 5, 1, 4. And Renault have 2. Oh dear.
Please leave that in.
Okay. So I just did the averages. Mercedes have 156 on average per team. Ferrari 115. Honda 143. And Red Bull improving all the time. And Renault 60.5.
Wow.
Luckily, none of us predicted Renault, but none of us also predicted Honda, who I think we can all agree have been much more reliable than any of us thought would happen.
Oh, definitely. Even the most optimistic of Honda fans and Red Bull fans were expecting a lot of failures, weren't they? Certainly that's the vibe I got, but they've been brilliant. You can't fault Honda. The way they've turned it around from where they were is just incredible. 143.5, so that's second. Ahead of Ferrari. Wow.
Ahead of Ferrari. They're only
that is impressive.
Sort of 13 points per team behind Mercedes. And, you know, I think we can agree, Dan, that it's really Mercedes pulling all of the weight among their teams.
Yeah, I did expect Racing Point to be a lot better than they've done so far this year. But saying that, all of you've gone for Ferrari, and I think we all expected both Haas and Alfa Romeo, especially Haas, to be fighting for best of the rest. So I think I have lucked out a little bit with this one.
I don't know. I think Honda might nick that before the end of the season, you know.
I think I agree, to be honest.
And as we said, Dan, Albon is stepping into that Red Bull seat, and we'll have to see what he can do.
Yeah, and that Toro Rosso seems to be getting better and better. I know it's definitely a case-by-case basis at the moment in the midfield, but that whole package is really good this year, Honda.
Not the disaster we were expecting, or a lot of people are expecting. So I keep saying I'm chuffed for them. That's such a British word, isn't it? Chuffed. I really am.
I'm going to have a little look at Quali dominance, which we spoke a little bit about earlier. We were talking about which driver would out-qualify their teammate by the most over the whole year and by how much. Sean, you predicted Perez 16-5. I went for Hamilton 15-6. Jonty went for Kvyat 18-3. This is the first time we've seen sort of some Kvyat optimism. And Dan, you went for Verstappen 18-3. Do you know who's leading this?
Russell.
Got to be Russell.
The answer is Perez and Russell. They both 12-0.
Oh, wow.
Sean, you're in for a shout at this, depending on whether Stroll could actually step up a bit. Who do you think is more likely to lose that unbeaten streak, Perez or Russell, by the end of the year?
Oh, as much as I like the guy, I really want to say Perez, but I think Russell is more likely to. I think those key bits are closer to Russell than Stroll is to. That's a tough question, actually. I'll say Russell, but I'm rooting for Stroll.
Person to root for, considering you have picked Perez as the.
Oh yeah,
but sure. I mean, you do what you like, Sean. What about you, Dan? Do you think Perez can hang on to this for the rest of the year?
I think so. Poor Stroll. I mean, like we said earlier, he's been really good in the races, but Quali is just not his strong suit. I think this one will come down to if there's any issues on the car. I think that's the only reason Verstappen isn't 12-0 because of what happened in Canada. So, yeah, I think it'll. And I was going to say Williams more likely to have an issue, but they've been bulletproof so far this year. So it's going to be close.
It's the one thing they got. They've really taken the mantra to finish first. First, you have to finish to heart, and then done nothing else. Yeah, I think that's going to be interesting to see. I didn't actually note down the ratios of the people we actually picked to see how close they were. That would have been useful to see, hasn't it? But I think I picked Hamilton, and Bottas has actually got quite a few poles this year, so that's not looking great. They're actually pretty evenly matched. Now, I asked you to look at the Formula 1.5 championship in a slightly different way to the actual one that's on Reddit, where they actually recalculate the points. I wanted to ask you which driver, not in the top 3 teams, will score the most points. I think this gives a really big hint as to where our heads were back in February, because 3 of us have gone for Ricciardo. Jonty's gone for Perez. And those 2 teams are the ones I think that let us down the most. So it's going to be a tough call for any of us to win this. But I'll give you a little top 3 standings. Kvyat is 3rd with 27 points. Raikkonen is 2nd with 31 points. And Sainz is well ahead with 58 points. How do you rate Sainz this year compared to how you thought he would last going in?
I tell you what, last year, I really rated Sainz, and I got a lot of hate for it, to be honest with you. And people said Hülkenberg was so much better, and I kept on saying, "But no, look at it. He's got the most points out of any driver outside the top 6." But no, people didn't listen, and I feel a little bit of karma. I don't want to try and rub it in people's faces, but and he's not been bulletproof, Sainz, this year, that's for sure. But he's been really good. He's been one of my drivers of the season, and I didn't expect him to be not only that far in front of the rest of the midfield, but to be that close to Gasly. Yeah. I mean, Red Bull kicking themselves for sure over this one, but he's been put into a team, replacing Alonso. There's going to be pressure there, but leading a team for the first time in his career, and he's thrived on it. So I couldn't be happier for him. He's been awesome. And
Sean, are you surprised to see Raikkonen and Kvyat sort of right there amongst it?
Yeah, not Kimi. I'm never surprised when Kimi does anything. Because he's just Kimi about it. He just turns up and delivers, and that's that. But I know again, going back to Germany, that's exaggerated, if you like, Fiat's score a little bit. But very surprised to see him in that top 3. Very, very surprised. But on site, completely agree with everything Dan said. And I think he's got that 7th place in the bag. That title's his.
Again, this is like a question that didn't really exist. Unless...
We all played quite safe, didn't we, looking at those answers? Or what we thought was safe at the time.
Okay, I'll move us on. Next question, which I think we're all just going to fall on our faces of, because this was the most open, weird question, in which I asked you to name a change Liberty Media will announce for Formula 1 over the next year, whether it comes in 3 years down the line, as long as they announce it. Do you remember this? Jonty thought there'd be 360-degree cameras through VR headsets and smartphones. Dan, you said there'd be an F1 World Cup where the countries' points are tallied up. Sean, you went for 2 pit stop minimum, and I went for drone cameras, which brought in to fly directly over the track. And as far as I know, none of these things have come true yet.
How
Sean.
boring is my answer? That's boring, isn't it? Aliens come and all sorts, but no, 2 pit stop minimum. Have they not got drones yet?
I don't think, not ones that go over the track. I mean, I'm willing to take, this is where we ask the audience, like, have you seen a drone? I don't think we have. I think we have things on wires, and I think we have helicopters, but I don't think we have drones. I don't know if you've seen anything, Dan.
No, Jonty's one though. Maybe it's me just not understanding what on earth he's on about, which happens quite often with Jonty. But there's 360 cameras, but is it the fact that it's specifically through VR headsets? I don't really know quite what he's on about there.
This is very prevalent in Formula E, but they have the 360 cameras and they put it on YouTube with full 360, and you can use like a Google Cardboard thing and look around. And I feel there've been a couple of times when F1 has done that, but I don't know. We might have to argue over what counts as that being a feature.
Yeah.
But I agree, I've seen snippets of that kind of thing around.
I thought the 360 cameras were for VR when they were first bought in. We might have to Google that, or again ask the audience on that one. But I'm sure that when the 360 cameras were bought in, the idea was that would be eventually VR. Which the reason I say that is because that might fall under the announcement has to come in 2019 criteria.
This is going to take
very sneaky.
So by the time we come to the end of the day, we'll definitely do this research and make sure we know exactly what the hell's going on with that. Because I think we've all ended up a bit confused about what counts. I'll get Jonty. I'm sure you're watching this in the premiere. Tell us if you think you're right or not.
You say he's right.
Problem solved. Okay, this is sort of the last real question. I asked how many races will be confirmed for 2020. Again, nothing's confirmed till sort of confirmed till the winter. Dan, you've gone 22. Sean, you've gone 23. I've gone 23. Jonty's gone 22. At the moment, the professional camera still only has 21 races on it. We've had sort of some swaps around. We've got Vietnam's coming in. We've got the Dutch Grand Prix coming in, swapping in for something else. But the last time I checked the professional camera, which was a few hours ago, it's still just 21 races, which I'm surprised about.
Yeah, it's 21, isn't it? But they're currently arguing with teams about bringing 22 in. Because I think Spain is sort of just about saved, but they need the teams to agree to take it to 22. Because Mexico's gone and got itself saved as well. So this could, if the teams agree to go more than 21, this could very easily, by the end of the year, if Germany can get saved as well, end up as 23 very easily.
I thought Spain was dead, and I was quite happy for it. I don't think anyone's particularly fighting for Spain to stay.
Bless him. It's not the best circuit, is it, Spain?
No.
It's fine for a testing venue. Racing is questionable, but I think I'm more surprised that we've let 2 races go. Let's say Spain, we'll just conclude that one, but Hockenheim as well. I know Hockenheim's had a bit of a wishy-washy contract over the last few seasons, but I'm not surprised them bringing in 2, but letting 2 go, considering they're aiming and seem to be banging the drum about 25 races, I'm quite surprised at.
But I tend to look less at the sort of political side of things because I find it all a load of gumph, and you never really know what's true until like the press release is out. But I don't know what races you chop out if you needed to make room for bigger races.
You know what? You've put me on the spot here. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Spain would definitely be near the top of that list. I quite like a lot of the races on the calendar, even some of the ones like Russia that get quite a lot of stick. I'm not dead against Russia, and even sorry, this isn't going to go down well, but I don't dislike France.
I mean, if you're talking just about the racing, Australia, Spain,
Ooh, yeah,
Monaco. Again, just the racing, not the actual tracks or anything like that. Just for the races we get, Monaco. France would go. I'd lose Hungary, probably Singapore, Russia. Basically, we'd have about a 10 race calendar if I had my way.
Sean's just tired. Is what's happened.
Yeah, I hate everything. But I will re-emphasise the point. Just based on the racing, I would never get rid of Monaco.
All right, let's sort of bring this to a close. Because my last question, which we won't know until the end, but you guys have pointed you in the completely wrong direction. I asked you who would win this game based on the 19 questions we just had. Sean, you've gone for yourself, and everyone else has gone for Jonty. let's have a little look at how the points have added up. Again, plenty to mark in yet, and I think there's a couple of extra points to add for the liveries that we agreed on. But confirmed points, Jonty's got 4, I've got 7, Sean, you've got 9, and Dan is on 16, running away like Carlos Sainz in the Formula 1.5 Championship. Unfortunately, no one picked you, Dan.
No, even I didn't back myself, to be honest. So I'm not too fussed. I'm more disappointed that I went for Jonty, looking at it now.
He's not had a good first half of the season, but as we know, people could turn these things around. Jonty does... Oh, I was going to say he gets another point for the liveries, but actually he lost a point there. So, so never mind. Yeah, I mean, based on your quizzing, Dan, I am surprised how well you're doing. It's hard to know sort of where this will end up because I think there's a lot of things that I extrapolated some data to kind of give you these provisional scores. So don't get too comfortable. Sean, I think you've still got a chance, especially if you do well in the first 19 questions and then get an extra 5 points for predicting yourself.
2 things. How did I get to 9? It's the first thing.
You're actually on 10 because you got a livery one as well.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh, brilliant. But Dan is only 4 off the combined total of all of us together. Is that right?
Oh, he's gone full Mercedes on us. He has so far. Jonty's the only person who's got minus points on any question. But Jonty likes to play it dangerous. And Jonty's still got Belgium coming up as the most retiring Grand Prix. And that's when his comeback's going to begin. Well, congratulations, Dan, on your provisional winning streak. I look forward to all crumbling down around you by the end as it did in the quiz.
Thank you very much.
Because I do remember you two taking an early lead there as well.
Yes.
And Sean, you're not right behind him, but you are certainly in the game.
I feel like in the next update at the end of the season, me, you, and Jonty, if Dan's still running away with it, we need to get together and start twisting some of these.
I thought you were going to say get together and add our points up.
It might help, although
yeah.
I doubt it. Yeah, I've got a chance. If only Hamilton had been terrible in the first half of the year, that could have gone so much better.
Well,
I think Dan's looking very good.
I think it's one thing we learned, if we spend our whole careers analysing Formula One, it doesn't mean we're going to be any good at knowing what's going to happen. Let me know in the comments. I'll say one thing. I know the audience did actually answer these questions themselves. I'm saving that for the final video and not just because I ran out of time today to do that. That definitely was a planned, strategic thing. But I do have the audience answers and we'll bring them in at the end of the year in December and see whether or not you can actually beat them. But for now, I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you, Dan, for joining us. It's always good to have you on.
Thank you very much for having me, mate. It's been a good laugh, I think, especially at Jonty's expense.
Yeah, well, hopefully Jonty will be able to join us at the end of the year and we can twist the knife then. We don't want to be too hard on him, Moody's right now, but yeah, it's not gone so well. Thank you, Sean. I'm sure I'll be chatting to you on one thing or another before December.
Yes, I'm sure. Thank you very much for having me. These are fun. This and the bingo. It's good fun. I'm hoping you're doing it again next year. Bit early yet, I know. But,
yeah,
you know,
I'd very much like to.
Straight away.
Cool. Right. Well, that's definitely the end of that. It's only going to be a couple of weeks till the next race. So I hope this is padded out August for everybody else. And I'm going to say goodbye. I don't know how to wrap these up. I'm just going to waffle. And then maybe I'll keep talking, but actually I'll turn the fader down on the volume. So the more I say, the less you'll be able to hear. And then the credits will start to come up and the music will drown me out.